this is the first time that a lot of you are meeting me, and not today, right? So I'm Samuel. I'm a senior product designer in Lagos, Nigeria. Um, have about like 6 to 7 years in product design or in design in general. Started from a graphics designer, and scaled into being a product designer. I currently work at a couple of companies at the same time. I work with Nestcoin here in Lagos, Nigeria. I work with Scalio in San Francisco, US. I work with Font in Florida, and I'm also a designer on TopTal. And that's like pretty much an overview of my career and where I am currently. I'm also a pretty chilled person. So feel free to like hop in, ask questions, um, and let's make this class awesome today. All right, so let's start with business requirements. What exactly are business requirements? And does anybody want to like just help us touch on that, or just say like a couple of people just give me what comes to mind when you hear business requirement and from a product UI UX standpoint? Anyone?
Morning. My name is Imo. Can I go?
Yes, please.
Okay, so business requirements are those specifications or what business requires the product designer to build for them. It might be the business wants to create a product or a service. So when working with the designer, those things they want the designer to work out that will specifically increase their leverage against competitors. That's what I think business requirements are.
Okay, so you're right, but I would say, or let me just give a more standard perspective to it, right? So business requirements is just basically the overall goal, right, and objective of a business, right? And where designers come into the business requirement phase is basically taking that idea, right, that thought or those goals and objectives, right, and building a product. Now, there are a lot of touch points that comes to play, right, to be able to achieve those things, right? But understanding that business requirements here should be the overall goal of the business. What exactly does this business want to achieve? What exactly does this business want to do? And not primarily your design tasks. Do you get? So most people come to you and tell us, here are our requirements, and they are not actually their business requirements, and then they just have you working on so many annoying stuffs, right? And by the time you are done, you just hear them telling you when you present a particular solution, they tell you, oh no, this doesn't align with what we do. Meanwhile, right, they gave you some specifications, but it wasn't actually their business requirements. So they have not outlined necessary things that they need, right, to be able to build such business. Now, there are different parties to, or different parties in this business requirement and then stakeholders. Before we even talk about like how to manage feedback, how to manage expectations and the likes, right? There are like some important things that, and also like maybe like helping them gather ideas, but there's some important things that you need to know before a company can define their business requirements, right? There needs to be synergy with the business owners. There needs to be synergy with the core technical person on the project, right? there needs to be synergy with a project manager, and there needs to be synergy with a designer. In Nigeria here today, we have a lot of shabby companies that just try to skip process, right, and not do the effective thing, and put so much pressure on designers, right, and then last minute start to refine their product, and then it now becomes a lot of work for you as a designer because you're then working under pressure. You're having to tweak things when you've spent months working on different screens. One person just comes today and say, "Oh, we've hired a CTO," and then CTO comes in and says, "All the things you have been doing is not applicable in the real world." Do you understand? So it's important that when you're speaking to stakeholders, right, and they're giving you these business requirements, you ask some certain questions, which is one, as a business, right, in terms of the business goals, are all the stakeholders on this project aligned? You don't want one person telling you this is what we do and another person telling you something entirely different. The second thing is there a technical person that has gone through these requirements that you are asking, right? And has validated it from a technical standpoint, right? Third thing is, in terms of achieving these requirements, is there somebody who is managing expectations in terms of delivery roadmap when things come to play, right? And lastly, you coming from a design thinking perspective, right? How do we help the users? How do we solve this solution where we meet business goals, right? And also users' needs, right? So let me just point it out with a scenario. And I would like somebody to just try and um, so who wants to volunteer, right? I just want to do like a small demo of a client and a designer first meeting where I am giving you business requirements and to just see how you approach it. So does anybody want to try? Just one person. Don't worry, don't be afraid. It won't be too hot, but it will help
Good
me.
morning, sir.
All right, good morning. What's your name? Jimba, right?
Yes, Jimba Wakayade. That's my name.
All right, awesome, Jimba. Okay, so hi, Jimba. My name is Samuel. I'm a CEO of a agrotech company, right, in Lagos, Nigeria, and I'm looking to hire an awesome designer like yourself, right? And here are the things I need to do. We want to solve all the farming problems in Nigeria, and we need you to design it. Are you on board? What do you think?
Yes, I'm on board. I can design it.
Wrong. You never say yeah. So first of all, you heard me say I want you to solve all the farming problems in Nigeria, and you told me you can design it.
Okay. I should ask that what are the problems?
Exactly. Now, this is how we're walking into getting information from stakeholders, right? How we actually help them gather ideas because these people think too much, and that's the honest truth. Stakeholders, especially CEOs, can build the world in their head, right? But you need to be able to help them define it. And this is why it would help you not be frustrated as a designer. I've had many scenarios where I've been very frustrated. And that's because stakeholders bring things to me. I jump straight into work. I start doing research. Bam, 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 bam. Here's my design. You work on it, and I'm like, I was actually thinking, does this thing really make sense based off of I saw this app? Then they bring one app that is not even in their industry, right? And then they bring that app and start telling you that see this app now, like, don't you think we should do something like that? And then you're like, what are we trying to achieve, right? So, Jimba, let's go again, right? I'll say the same thing, and let me see how you approach it now. Um, so I'm a CEO of an agro tech, right? And I need an awesome designer like you to come on board and help me solve um, solutions of all the farmers in Africa. What do you think?
Sorry, coming in. The solutions to all the problem of farmers in Africa.
Of all the farmers in Africa.
So what is the problem of the farmers? What are the
Awesome.
problems of the farmers?
Awesome. So the first thing that you guys need to note down is never be afraid to ask founders, what do you want to do? Don't tell me this is our vision. Oh, we're going, we're going to be like Flutterwave, we're going to be as big as Flutterwave. The first question you as a designer need to get is, what exactly do you want to solve? What is the most important problem? Yes, your product can scale. Yes, your product can have numerous features. But what is the main thing that you want users coming back for every day? And that's how you start to shape ideas with stakeholders, right? If you allow them to give you a broad, long perspective, right, you're just going to be confused, right? And being confused sets you in a place as a designer where you would keep working on things, working on solutions, right? And it will look like you're not making progress. So I'm trying to help you understand how business requirements are defined, right? That's one of the things we need to basically take away from this call. Another thing is how to effectively help stakeholders, right, in terms of putting their ideas together. The third thing is, as a designer, right, when I take this information, how do I work on it? And this thing will help you as a designer not to jump on projects where one thing happens and then you're like, oh, this is not what we were discussing, or they start to bring things that are out of scope and they expect you to do them for the same amount of money you discussed for the previous scope, right? I'll give you an example, right? I'm currently working on a project with some very, very top people in the US. Like, I'm talking about like Disney producers. And these people are old people. They're like maybe like in their 50s or 60s, like they're old men. There are people that worked on projects like Lion King and the rest, right? And you can't have long meetings with them. Like you can't sit down, you can't even 15 minutes safe. It sometimes is too long. You just see one person say, yo Sam, I gotta jump on the call. Yo Sam, I have a doctor appointment, and they just leave the call. But these people communicate through email, right? Now, imagine you're having to speak to stakeholders, get feedback, align ideas through an email thread. Do you know how tasking that thing is? Right? But as a designer, understanding how to take meaningful information, right, and create a scope out of it is very effective if you get into scenarios like what I got into. Ideally, there should be a project manager, ideally, there should be all that, but there's nothing like that. It's just the four people that own the project and myself as the designer that's working on it, right? So you need to understand that one, it's very, very, very important as a designer to know how to take information. So let's start with business requirements and let's just take things from top level, right, to the practical levels. So for example, for business requirements, right, what are the things that you need to know? First of all is what industry. So what industry is this product going to be in? Now, this helps you as a product designer start to think about experiences that you've encountered, or start to for you to know that these are the kind of products that you should look for. Many of us would want to work on a finance app, right? We're going to be looking through Dribble and see one post of one person doing um school data board, and they pick that same design principle and bring it to designing a finance app. Secondly, you want to also reference to products in that industry. I keep telling people this thing that, do we feel that designers in Instagram or designers in Facebook or designers in Twitter, right, are not badass designers? That do we think that they cannot do like mad ass UI where almost the UI is somersaulting, is backflipping, everything is there? But you see, these people, they maintain an industry standard that if I move from Facebook to Twitter, I don't find the experience too different. The same way what Instagram is trying to do with TikTok, if you notice, Instagram is trying to emulate TikTok so much that the app is already looking like TikTok, especially if you saw that recent update. That's because they are not leveraging off of random things, right? But they are leveraging off of industry perspective. Is one of the most important things when discussing business requirements with stakeholders, so that they don't mislead you. They don't bring random apps just because they like it, because you can tell them that, thank you for bringing this app. Yes, from a visual standpoint, this product you are talking about looks great. But in terms of what you want to achieve, here's a better product that I think you should spend time walking through. This will better help you understand some things that you are proposing as features that have already been done. Second thing about business requirements is you need to know if it's a me too approach, right? Or if it's an original new idea. Now, what exactly is me too approach? If I approach you and I tell you I want to build a payments gateway where anybody can integrate and use to pay things on stores and stuff like that, right? I'm already talking about a product like Paystack and Stripe. It's the same way Paystack is always saying Stripe of Africa. It's a simple me too approach. We are not doing something that is new. We're not doing something that has never been done. We just want to simply create a product exactly like what these guys are doing. It's like I said, you've gotten industry. Okay, we're in the finance fintech phase or whatever, right? You've understood what their product approach is. We are leveraging off of ideas that have already been done, right? Now, if it's an original idea, this is where a lot of the managing of stakeholders' expectations come in, right? If it's an original idea and you come to you and say, you know what, I want to build something that has never been done, right? I want to build an AR app, right, that allows users to basically scan their x-ray, right? So when it maybe a doctor sends you your x-ray chart or your whatever they call that thing, when I place my phone on that x-ray, right, I can basically detect all the information that the doctor wants to send to me. Let's just assume that's what I'm. You see how random and scattered the idea is. But then somebody comes to you and tells you that they want to build that. Now, you ask the person, oh, this is great, right? And person say, yes, this has never been done. It's a new app, you can check it anywhere. Also, right? It's a fantastic idea. But what exactly do you want this product to solve for? So you have the what. What is the product? What is the industry? You're now moving into the why, right? In terms of why this product. Yes, it makes sense to think about an AR product that can scan an X-ray, but what exactly would I need it for? Why don't I need my doctor to send it? Why don't I need my doctor to tell me on the phone? Do you understand? What exactly is it solving? Is it that people spend, maybe like you've been able to find out that 80% of people, due to the fact that they spend so much time waiting for X-ray results, right? It affects certain elements in their life, and you've seen it play out, or you've experienced it, or you've thought about it, or maybe you are a doctor or something, or you have doctor friends in that industry that have complained about that to you, and you thought about an easy way, right, of them sending these images and having all the information with a simple AR app, where if I point my phone to the wall, I see my big X-ray review on the wall, and then I can see all the information that I need to see. So understanding the what is this about? What industry is this in? right? I hope you guys are taking note. I'm so sorry I don't have a presentation, but I'm trying as much as possible to point things out in a way where you can pick them as points. You then move on to the why, right? Now, this why, you need to dwell on it. See, there's nothing wrong in sending stakeholders back to go and think. And also understand that user experience, right? Sorry, please let me just put my phone on to not disturb because I seem to be getting so many calls. Can everyone still hear me? Hello guys, can everyone still hear me?
Yes, we can
Yes.
hear you.
Right, first. Right. So we need to understand that user experience and UI design is not, you are not meant to die in a company. And I mean, like, you are not meant to carry all the body, the product. You know, many people tell you that, oh, you are the designer, you are meant to know. You are not meant to know everything. That's why it's important to ask. A lot of product designers in Nigeria here, right? Or we guys that are just trying to get into product design, we're always scared to ask questions because you think that it makes you feel or sound like you are incompetent. You cannot know everything, especially when you get into an industry that you've never worked in. Ask questions. It's very important that you get all the critical things you need and can build on, right? And don't work based off of assumption and personal bias, because that's what a lot of us tend to do at some point. We just assume, this app makes sense. Like, a lot of people who want to, no matter what you tell them to design, you will see them, they will still carry wise design, carry paystack design, carry, because those are defined apps that they know. And it doesn't work that way, right? Yes, there's element of visual to it, but the most important thing is your design thinking, right? And let me tell you what design thinking does. Design thinking is that sweet spot that takes business requirements, right, and user needs and adds them together for you to create a proper and effective solution. If you can apply design thinking, right, where you have to empathize, define all those your normal, the scenario now. But if you can apply those design, most times we just add those things to our case study, or we say, hey, here's my process. I apply design thinking or user experience method, whatever. I apply these things. We just add it to case studies, but we don't actually apply it into the phase of the project that we need to. And it is very important, and it shows in terms of also your own output. You don't necessarily have to be a fantastic designer to build solutions, but you have to be a good user experience designer. We see a lot of apps abroad that you just open it and you'll be wondering, can these people come and hire me in Nigeria? I know I can do better than this. Like, when I started working with foreign companies, I realized that they don't have half of the talent that we have here. But the difference between them and us here is that they are patient enough and not scared to get as much information they need before they make actions. So yes, I said design thinking addresses business goals, right? And user requirements, like user needs. So it means that when you basically empathize, right, with the user, get those information, right? And then you basically then take that and say, you know what, all these things I've gathered. Now, from the user perspective, how does this influence them? Which means you're doing user research, you may be conducting some interviews, sending out some surveys, just basically the basic preliminary researches that you have to do, right? So hope that's covered. All right, awesome. So yes, let's go back to it, right? It's very important that you don't, somebody will just send you text message on WhatsApp, I have a project for you. You just chat for like 1 minute. The next thing they will ask you, when can we see something? And then you send them something by Friday, and they'll be like, oh no, this is not what we are looking for. And they just drop you, and you're like, what just happened? So don't let people use you for guesswork, right? Work, and this is just me also helping us shape some experiences that I had, right, studying of product design, especially working with Nigerians, right? It can drain you, can make you give up on product design. I mean, we all know what I'm talking about. There's always that one person that will enter your WhatsApp and tell you, I have one, no, I promise you, this. Then you start working on it. They will just be telling you, Sam, why do we have this here? And you're like, I don't understand. This is what we talked about, Jonathan. And before you know it, they will tell you that, oh, they think they need somebody more experienced. And the major thing they need is to actually give you the right information and stop talking about things that does not concern them. Do you understand? So let's move back to what I was talking about in terms of the why, right? Now, it's important to get these questions answered, right? So that you then know what exactly. Let me just open the chat. I saw somebody say something that's very interesting. This one told me I'm using same design pattern to solve different problems. But yes, very true. All right, so basically back to the why, right? It's important because let me put it this way. If I know what you want to do, when I go back to my laptop, when I'm ready to start working, I basically have a more filtered way of making my research. Do you understand? Let me give you an example, or let me ask this question. Who should tell you who the target audience is? Can anybody answer?
I believe is the person that brought the project. Should tell you
No,
the target
Awesome.
the people they want to
Awesome.
capture. The people they want telling you that.
the end user.
Awesome.
But most
Awesome.
time you can get the target audience from the description, like the project they want to work on. So you know the kind of people that can or these projects fit in with. But you still need
Let
to
me
ask them
see.
question.
Let them
To
say.
assume.
See. Let them see who their target audience is. One thing you need to derive is do not assume anything, both on the user side, right, and on the business side. Do not assume. You must get clear cut approvals. When they say something, if they don't say it, right, ask them, who do you think you want to build this app for? Millennials, Gen Z, old people, who do you want to build this app for? What do you think your ideal target audience is? Let them not say, oh, you actually think we want to focus on millennials. You know why? Because you can take that information so that when you are bringing recommendations and they are telling you, this is too this thing, you can tell them that based off of the target audience that we're trying to reach, this is more appealing, and you can better back up your design, which is another important thing you need to know. You need to be able to, one, offer solutions and be able to back it up with research, right? And based off of their business requirements. See, that thing, circle back to it as many times. When they are talking, just like, oh, so sorry, oh. But based off of our conversation and the business requirements, we were able to outline that the target audience are millennials. Millennials adapt more to XYZ flow. Here's why I did this way. That's the easiest way to start getting approvals on stuff done. But if you take it from, you just they said, I know that is millennials. Let me give you an example. I wanted to work on an app, right? And this app is meant to serve um, people that rent apartments in the UK, right? Can you guess what they told me they currently have users? And in my mind, I was thinking that, if it's UK, based on like, we they suffer for this Nigeria. I was thinking if it's UK, maybe to be young people that would be renting, right? And like older people would have gotten their homes, because I mean, like, it's easier to like get homes in other countries because of like their credit score and other like fun things they have. So they won't have so many old people on the platform. Do you know the target audience they gave me? They said 18 to 100. And I kid you not. And I thought that these people were lying. Like they just said one number. When they showed me their users, they have people within the age 80, 90, because it's a product that allows landlords to manage their tenants. So if somebody wants to enter the building, or give the person access, you can log in your visitors, all those just simple basic stuff that they do, right? Electrical bills, they can just basically get it. If there's like maintenance, they can request for repairs on. That's basically what they do. And I was seeing 80 something, 70 something. Now imagine you assume that it will mostly be young people, and you started doing something that is not accessible for the older generation. It means you've made a flaw because you work based off of assumption. So it's important that when you ask these questions, these whys, right? There are some things that would be set in stone. So let's say, for example, that same target audience question, right? And they tell you, oh, it's millennial. You ask them, oh, has there been any research done to justify that your target audience are millennials? If they say, yes, we've done research, we have a lot of surveys, you already know that, okay, send me those information. Let me also take a look at it and see how you were able to arrive at that. But if they tell you no, you already note it down. We have to do a survey at least to be able to outline who our user personas and target audience is, because this person is just talking based off of vibes and inshallah, it doesn't really know. So are you seeing why you need to ask them some certain questions and how it actually helps you and makes your life as a designer easy? Now, let's move into the how. So we've talked about the what, which is things like what industry, right? We've talked and things like, okay, what exactly are the things you want to solve for? Do you understand what exactly is the problem you are focusing on? Don't tell me you want to solve all the problem of farmers in Africa. What problem? Say the problem. Let them define those things, right? You're not taking them into the why. Do you understand? We're talking about why these people, okay, what's making you think that, who are your target audience? You understand? Just some specific questions like that. And then you're moving on to the how. So now that we know who we want to reach, right? Because sometimes everybody will just come and say, I want to do mobile app. And what they need is a web app. Let me give you an example. Do you know that crypto apps are very difficult to list on the App Store? Go on, if you ask anybody working in crypto industry, you can hear they will just wake up one day and they'll see that App Store has removed their app. That's why you see the likes of Bundle and other products pushing out web apps. Can you see? Now imagine you just coming into the crypto space and somebody wants to do exactly what these guys are doing, and he's saying, oh no, me, I just want to do a mobile app. And you ask the person that, in this Nigeria, don't you think that you should also factor for a web app? Here's why. Because first of all, you've understood their industry based off of you've asked them, right? The what. You've understood who they want to reach, the why. If you maybe want to reach this many people, don't you think you should just provide a web app experience so that people who are on iOS would always have access to their platform, even if an app store just decides to remove their app one day. Although people work on it, they list it back. But App Store is very crazy when it comes to crypto app. You can wake up and not see your app on the App Store and spend weeks battling how to get it fixed. And the way Nigeria works, it's very difficult for you to just have your crypto app on your phone. If you are going out, you don't want them to arrest you, quickly just delete the app if you know you cannot hide it. If you don't want stress for yourself, do you understand? And they want to re-download it later when you get back home. Do you understand? So imagine now, I now encounter that and I'm not seeing the app on the app store. Why is your app not on the app store? Why is your app not on the app store? Do you understand? And then like, oh, we're so sorry, we're currently experiencing blah blah blah. Please, you can also still log in with the web app. And I just go to the website on my phone, log in, see my crypto is intact. That's because you've foreseen some industry things. Does somebody want to ask a question? Please go ahead if you want to ask a question. All right, so let me just continue then. So it's important to ask them the how, right? So what you want to build, do you get? What exactly, how do you want it to reach users? So they say, oh, we want it to be a mobile app, we want it to be a web app, or we want a web app and a mobile app. You need to understand these things. Okay, so this is a very, very good question. And I'll answer this and also help you understand, right? What happens when you believe a web app will be best, but your client is still insisting on an app? Like I said, you are a product designer, a senior. Let me use the word senior product designer because that's the goal, and that's why you guys are attending this classes. You are a senior product designer. You are not the CEO. You cannot kill yourself. This thing, put it on record. I think we should do a web app. Give them proper research. Don't just say it. Like, don't just say it. I think we should do a web app because Bundle is doing a web app. Get information that you can use. Like I said, you always need to be able to back up your design ideas, recommendations, back it up very well. Now, when you do all that and they still say no, you make it, you see, so they understand now that I, as a senior product designer, has brought up this concern that I feel that we need to address, right? When the client now says, no, 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 I don't care. I want a mobile app. That's what me, I want, right? Esther, please do their mobile app for them and collect your money. Unless you have shares in the company or you are a co-founder, hey, you can still be fighting it. Do your work, do exceptional work. That doesn't mean you will not do work that because you are annoyed that you won't be annoyed. You just simply say, you know what, that's how to take business feedback. If the business overrules things, let me give you an example. Do you know that in places like Google, right? I have a mentor in Google. She says that so she left Google. She was an interaction designer in Google, right? And she left. She said why she left is you can be working on things at the bottom level, and when it gets to the top, there are many organs in Google before it even gets to the main people. Your idea can be reduced to nothing. Like you can be working on something, when it gets to the top, they just look at it, they just look at how much it will cost, and just be like, next, please go and think of something better. And that thing will never ship. Do you understand? But as a designer, you need to be able to give recommendations because you are not just focused on users. Your users are also the business stakeholders. And a lot of, let me tell you the honest truth, a lot of Nigerian apps, apart from some, I don't want to list names, but a lot of apps are built based off of what founders want and not really what users need. And that's why till now there are still some apps that are just useless, and all they just do is post Instagram posts. We don't have any use for them. Do you understand? But there are some apps that you cannot buy something online and not either encounter Flutterwave or Paystack. You cannot. Do you understand? So it's important to know that give your recommendations, but also accept your fate when they don't agree and just do your work. And if it's something that you know that you're based off of ethics, right? You don't think it makes sense to further, and you feel like you're financially okay to turn down or drop some projects, right? It's fine. Based off of this, I feel like the route you're going doesn't fit into my direction for this product. And as a senior product designer, I feel like my recommendations should be validated, especially with such research, but I will not be able to move on with this project. All those one are land back for Nigeria, will go run now. So just run it. But the honest truth is recommend, right? Please, I'm not mentioning Apple. Leave headline sponsors, I beg. And I'm not saying I beg. anyways, let's move on. Um, so it's just important here, like I said, to understand the how, right? So it's a mobile app, and it starts to ask. Now this is where you start to ask, okay, this app, who are the people working on it? Like, okay, engineers, right? And ask the engineers specific questions. How are we going about this? Is there, because let me explain something about information architecture. The same way in user experience, we do that where we have a user flow, user stories. Do you know it's the same way backend engineers do that? And do you know that if your user story and backend does not tally, most times who do you think changes? Can anybody just like answer? Like, if user experience, like my user story as a product designer, is different from what backend is proposing, right? Who do you think updates their user story? Let's say you did not discuss, you know, and then last minute they just see there's a difference. Who do you think updates their user story?
The product designer.
Thank you. Backend will never, especially if they started. You hear the CEO telling you that, Sam, we know, but you know, but the engineers have said, and that's the see, engineering, right, would always have that advantage because they know that design, you can still go back and make some adjustments faster than how long it will take an engineer to restructure a backend, especially if it has been built. That's why it's important to have these conversations before. Sorry, you, this flow, here's the flow I have in mind. Backend can tell you, no, we don't have any API to call this particular thing that you are saying. This is what we are integrating there. So that you know and you are building aligned with what the product would function on. So if you need to make recommendations to the backend engineer and say, don't you think, get them to think with you on the same page and agree, and let them tweak their architecture, because anything that makes them start on that architecture, forget. I've experienced it so many times. Your design will just be where it is. They will just take the ones they need and implement it, and then maybe later on they will tell you that later on we can think about these things. So it's important that you start to understand how technical people also want to approach it, right? So you've done user research, you've done user flows, you're like, oh, I think that I need to have a meeting with the core technical person to walk them through the user stories, the pain points, the different flows. So they know that, okay, yes, we need an API for this, we need to, and they can also then put together the architecture. Now, let me tell you why it's important to manage these things. Because do you know that when engineering have a problem, they will just say it's design. Do you know? And then you'll be saying as designer, be like, but I said this thing now, but I did this thing, and they'll be like, design, and they will blame it point blank on design. It's you see every time, even if it's mistake, you can see that something does not align on front end. They'll say, based off of the design, and then you have to go and check your Figma and be like, but my head is correct now. I didn't do what you did. See, that's how engineering guys approach it. But it's important that when you've done that, you can tell them, based off of our conversation where we walk through the user story, I had informed you, sharp, copy link, paste Figma, FigJam link or Miro link. Here is the link. Remember, we discussed that XYZ flow, which is what we have in design. They put question, you know, those questions that, or is there a change? You know that when you don't want to sound too wicked, but you want to be wicked. You know, like, was there any change since when we discussed that? And then the person is like, okay. And you see, because stakeholders find it easy to come down on design faster than engineering. One, they don't want to frustrate their engineers because it's very difficult to find good engineers. But they think, design, anybody can design. Especially if it's people that do not understand the importance of design. So you need to get them to a point where they take design recommendations so highly. Do you understand? That it should be able to influence engineering. And that's why you need to have these how discussions. Do you understand? They don't rate us. They rate us, but they don't rate us. Let's just leave it like that. But we need to get them to rate us, right? And it's just very important that these are the ways to do it. Designers need to learn how to take more ownership in business discussions. Do you know that engineers tell stakeholders straight up it cannot be done? So a stakeholder, when he's thinking in his head, he always feels he needs to let me paint a scenario for you. When you see startups, right? Why is it that the most important thing they look for is a CTO and not a chief product designer or chief creative designer? See, that CTO is more important than CTO can tell them we don't need a designer for anything, and they would run with it. That's why you see some products they will start everything will look bashu bashu. They will now be calling designer from somewhere and say we need somebody with fantastic skills, somebody that can refine our this thing under 3 weeks, because one CTO has said they didn't need design from the start, and then now they've rolled out feature, they've seen feature and all the app, everything look one on one. They are not saying I think we need a designer to just come in and polish things up. Then you as a designer, you are not seeing some things don't even make sense. Why are some things here? Why is this here? Oh, why does this screen come in this place? Don't you think this screen should be moved there? Then you will not be facing, no, we can't make that change. Just design it. Do you understand? So it's important that as a designer, you get yourself in that stakeholder's head, that the same way I see my CTO or any my technical lead is the same way I should see my product designer on this project. And it comes from these business discussions, these stakeholders feedback. Do you understand? Basically taking this information and be able to outline it properly. And that's why it's important that whenever you do anything as a product designer, let me give you one scope, right? And to be honest, this has helped me get numerous foreign gigs. Like, it's one thing as a product designer to have one foreign job and will be like, thank God I made it. And there's one thing for a product designer to be working more than one foreign jobs at the same time in this hot economy. Do you know one thing I always do is anytime I'm talking about design recommendations, or even if I'm pitching myself in a design interview, I always talk about business implications. So that's like a fun tip that I think you should note down. I always talk about business implications, business impacts. Nobody wants to talk about so I use Figma variants, and I just did the components. It was very sweet for me. Nobody wants to know that. They want to know how you solve the problem and how it helps that business, because at the end of the day, it's to make money. Let me give you an example. Would you give a bricklayer, you want to build your house, would you give an experienced bricklayer who has built many houses and has not collapsed, or you just give a bricklayer that he has never built a house and does not even know if the house can collapse? Who do you think you will give the project to? It's definitely the bricklayer that has built houses, and not built houses and they've collapsed too. Built houses and they've not collapsed. And then that bricklayer is telling you things like, oh, I recommended to my oga that instead of us to use Dangote cement, there's one quality cement that we can import. So any project I work on, we make sure that they import those quality cements to build these houses, and that's why our houses do not collapse. Do you understand? It's the same way for product design. When you're telling a founder that do we know about world accessibility considerations? I will send these links later on the Slack channel, like world accessibility guidelines. Do you know that they can sue a company if they don't meet those guidelines? We joke here in Nigeria, like users can take a company to court that based off of my own demographic, we were not factored in this experience and I used this product, and because of that I made a certain mistake that allowed me to lose money, and they will sue you for everything that your company is worth, and they will win because these guidelines are in place and they are legal guidelines that guide design um, implications. Imagine telling a founder that based on this accessibility guideline, you factored it into the product. This was able to help this product scale and also prevent the product from potential lawsuits. I'm telling you, fam, anybody that hears that thing, that my business, they can sue my business if I have bad design, will think it through. Do you understand? And they won't even just they won't just be asking you stupid questions like, what fonts do you like? When they are already understanding that design plays a major role in sustainability of that business. right? So it's important to discuss this hows, like I said, discussing the how these things have been done. Now, the last thing is when. That's where, so you see that I moved from, we're talking about stakeholders in general. I moved from business owner, I moved to technical personnel. Now I'm moving to project management. It's very stressful when a designer has to do project management. As a designer, we want to focus on the stuffs that we need to do because we are researching, we are testing out flows, we are creating flows, we are creating user low fidelity. We are still going to think of high fidelity, the visual, what icons should I use, what colors. You understand? Like there's so many things that you have to think of as a designer that you don't want to be managing um sprints. You don't want to be managing okay, what are we working on? You just want to be able to say, okay, based off of our goals this week, here are my outcomes. So it's now like when you ask the when, you ask them questions like, based off of this, when do we want to be able to achieve this? What's your estimated launch date? Oh, it's important too, because when you hear the many vision, you hear the many requirements. Oh, we need a designer that can actually make our UI fly. Somebody that can be our UI pilot. He will just be taking the UI to be flying. We will not stress ourselves. Then you now ask when, and they tell you that we need it to launch in a month's time. When you know something needs to launch in a shorter time, now this should help you, right? Be able to scope out these ideas or these features, because we've talked about how to help them define it, discussing the why, the how, and basically making them streamline on the core functions of what the app needs to do. So now you already have features in place. As a designer, and this is the honest truth, no matter how fast you are in it as a designer, it's very important that you give yourself extra time. Even if you know you can finish it in 1 month, do not tell the clients 1 month, because there are so many things that you do not count for. Personal things, your system can crash and you are waiting to buy another one, or you want to order one and then you have 3 days that has left. So it is important that you factor all these things. When they tell you their timeline, right, you can basically now tell them, you know what, if you're going to work with 1 month, right, it's very important that we effectively outline what our roadmap is, because you also need to work hand in hand with engineering. Do you understand? So it means somebody needs to be able to put your deliverables side by side with what engineering will need when they maybe want to start front end, when they only want to start some certain things. Do you understand? And you guys work in synergy. So you're already trying to state into the client that you cannot just tell me 1 month, right? And say by the end of 1 month we are done. Let's Because when you start spacing it out and they start to talk about flows, you start to hear things like, this flow cannot be done in a week. Here's why. But if you just say, no, this it can't be 1 month to finish this whole thing, 2 months, it will just sound bogus. Why 2 months? But if you're able to like effectively justify, do you understand? By saying, let's outline this thing on a roadmap. Do you get? Let's be able to space out, okay, this week, 2 weeks, this is what we want to achieve. And then it also helps stakeholders put ideas into priorities or features into priorities. It is very important. Have you ever had a situation where you are working on home screen and somebody is asking you for settings page, or you are working on home screen and somebody is telling you, when can we start on the website? Because you've told them 1 month and they just feel 1 month you are meant to be working on everything. So if you have an effective, they will know that this week, our goal is to release or finish this feature. Get please, another important thing, factor reviews. Factor reviews. Don't let them do shabby reviews and just say, I don't like this. I don't. Be the one that controls how your reviews are done. So maybe you set up a weekly call at the end of the week, which is what I do on some of the projects I'm on. And then I first walk them through, because you have to pitch your designs. Some of them just see this thing and they own the project, they don't even understand some things. So you have to pitch your designs very well. So when you're reviewing with them, so this is now us basically showing how we give feedback on ideas that we've worked on, right? Or basically information that we've taken. You set up a review call, you walk them through what you've done. Now, don't walk them through this the first screen. When you either click on this, you move to this screen, and you either click on this. Start from the 50,000 foot level, which is, here's how we were able to arrive on this solution. Take them back to, based off of discussions we had, research we did. Oh, is there an attendance form? I wasn't aware of that. Is there a way somebody can share that? Okay, awesome. All right. So, as I was saying, right, here's what we discussed. Take them back to past experiences based off of our research, based off of our target audience. Do you understand? When you are talking about those things and bringing those things in constantly, you now move to, so here's our solution. You've shaped their mindset, you've brought them back to think. So if your founder was thinking about ewagoing and plantain before, he can set his mind back that, okay, yes, that was where our conversation is at. So when you are showing these solutions, they don't sound strange. And they are not asking you stupid questions. Do you know, have you ever experienced somebody asking you, why are we using blue? Like, I don't even remember why we chose this color. Forgetting that you went through a phase where you basically created a style guide, you ran them through why these colors. And it's also important that as designers, we have a formal way of getting approvals. So after every discussion, collate feedback, right? So if, for example, you have clients that are sending emails, don't just read emails and screenshot that email. Create a Notion doc based off of feedback and discussion. Screenshot the email, right? Put the email inside that Notion doc. Create a table. Create maybe client's feedback. Copy and paste the text. Screenshot the email again so that it will have the date. Put it in another image of email. Then create another part called resolution, what we finally discussed and what we agreed on. Then have another part called outcome. That's what you did based off of what the resolution you had. So when you are discussing these things, see, it would reduce how stakeholders waste your time as a designer. It's very important. I know it sounds very tedious and it sounds like it's high level. Me as a designer, I will now be collecting information. But if you really, really want to get to a senior level where people do not question your expertise, there should never be a point when they ask you, so why do we have this? And you are doing, you know that you said that we should do it. Nothing like that. Be very, very clear. When we had a discussion where we ran through this, we all arrived at this as a team. Here, based off of this email, see, all you just hear, any founder that knows you, if you do it first time, second time, the next few years, okay, yeah. Even if he doesn't remember, I will say, oh, yeah, that's true. And then you guys will move on. Right? So it's very important that you are able to collate feedback. Collate when a stakeholder makes a recommendation. Don't just address the comment and resolve it on Figma. Copy that thing, paste it somewhere so that when you are talking about these things, you can always just open your Notion document and decide and read it and say, so when they're asking you questions like why did we do this way initially, You're like, oh, yes, on June 18, 2022, you remember we had a discussion where we did this, and then we all arrived. The CTO was also, it was, you can even say, oh, yes, that it was this person that even made this recommendation, and we agreed on it as a team. And always then now ask and say, but based off of new information, are we saying we want to change this flow? The moment they say yes, that we think, okay, let me give you an example. Imagine an app where you've created the sign up process, right? And for some reason, your stakeholder found out that we need to implement KYC, right? KYC is like, oh, upload ID, upload this, upload that. And basically, they now say, oh, we don't need to design that flow, Jerry. We'll use a third party platform. Are you listening? And then you're presenting the flow, and then somebody now asks you in a meeting, where is the KYC flow? Do you understand? Like, why haven't we designed the KYC flow? You can simply go back and say, we communicated that for KYC, we'll be using a third-party platform. I'm happy to screenshot the flows from these third-party platforms and paste it into Figma, but they are not custom designs done by us. Then ask, or are we proposing that we create our own KYC flow, and has engineering factored for this? Can you see the way I'm actually addressing these things? Right? You just have to sound professional. I know, like, we designers, we don't want to think about business, this thing. We don't want to be into many things. We just want to do our design work, right? But you will never move from being a basic UI designer in their eyes if you do not step up to these levels. And I experienced that thing hand in hand. There was a time where I did not like meetings. I did not like clients talking to me directly. All I just wanted to do was design work. It now turned to, you then have, because one person will just be coming, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And that's all you just be doing. You will not even, at some point, you will not even know what you are doing again. It will just turn to, oh, this person has said this, person has said that. But if you are owning it, that even when somebody says do this, you remind them of past discussions. You say, even though we are going to do this, we have to factor in some immediate things. So let me see. If you do and they feel intimidated, go, what do you mean by intimidated? Like they feel like you are trying to oppress them as a designer.
Sorry,
Please
I
oppress.
mean, no, I don't mean
Yes, go
oppress.
ahead.
Like they can't tell you something. Like they can't tell you something, and you like abide to it. Like you feel that you are you the one in charge. I'm the one in charge,
Okay.
bro. So do what I tell you to do.
Oh, no. So if you understand what I've been saying, yeah, you heard me when I said that if they say by force by fire, do it. But you need to let them know that based off of what we've discussed in the past, that's why we have this solution. So if we're making this change, is there a reason why we need to make this change? Do you understand? Nobody would feel intimidated if you are telling them things that would help their business. And you are not doing it for, see, now let me address this here. As a designer, don't be defensive of your designs. Do you understand? If somebody is complaining about, "Oh, I don't like this icon," don't be defensive about things like that. Tell them, oh, great. Would you like me to send you some more icon recommendations or some more icons, right, in the same place that might feel maybe better? And then we actually agree on what icon works best. You hear them say, oh, yes, that's fine. You can then now maybe add like 3 more icons. And then maybe they will say, okay, I think let's just use that previous icon. Don't worry. I think this one works best based on what you showed them. Do you understand? It can also then now be, oh, we want you to do this, right? You don't want to seem like you are just a yes and do designer. Have you ever experienced where you've been doing exceptional work in a company? You are the one that has built everything. And the next thing, you just hear they've hired somebody to come and be your boss as a designer. Have you ever, has anybody experienced that kind of thing? Or you've seen it happen, or you've heard about it happen? It has happened to me before, where I sat down, where I thought I was the badass designer. They brought somebody that will come and be my oga. I've been doing these things that you're talking about, that you said you feel like they'll be intimidated. Is that person that will tell them, no, I don't think this idea, because at some point you're also taking pressure off the founder if he's not having to be the one to be rethinking, be remembering so many things. All you're just doing is pointing them and making sure they are staying in the right direction and they are not deviating. Do you understand? So when a founder is coming to you and is talking about illustrations, you can let him understand that, oh, you know what? Instead of us wasting too much time on trying to go back and forth on illustrations, I am not an illustrator, but why don't we have these illustrations as placeholders, right? So that we do not slow down our design process and get an illustrator to come on board and start updating these illustrations on these screens. That's one recommendation. Or you say, you know what? Why don't we also maybe just browse through some illustration packs? I'm happy to share a couple of illustration packs with you where we can actually purchase them and have access to more illustrations, as I am currently using free illustrations and it's difficult to maintain consistency. When you are giving recommendations like that, they won't be picking on important things. Clients that are not ready to buy illustration will say, you know what, let's just continue for now. When we get there, we can change those things. So you're not sounding defensive. You are not shooting down their ideas. You are only telling them, based on what you are saying, here are the possible outcomes. And also, if you don't have outcomes for them, like if you don't know, right, you can also say, oh, thanks for this feedback. Would you allow me some time to just process this feedback and also make some research on my end to be able to give you the best recommendations to address this? And come back the next day with more informed decisions and answers. Do you understand? It's not that you tell them, no, this doesn't make sense. No, this doesn't. So when you give them these recommendations, let it sound like you're only expressing your concerns because you care about the product. So you're only expressing that, you know what, I think that this change, the impact on the users might be a little bit too tedious. Here's why. I went back to look at some examples and also check some apps. I noticed that some apps initially had this kind of flow, but they've also updated, and that's why I also made this flow the same way, because we don't want users to not be conversant with what we're doing. Now, if your stakeholder says, Sam, I think that what you're saying makes sense, but I still feel like we should try it that way. You can say, okay, do you know what? Should we have this flow? Let's just keep this flow somewhere and then implement the flow that you're talking about, just in case we need to circle back to it. The next thing you hear is okay, and you do what they want. But let me tell you, most times they will go back to what, I mean, we should have experienced these things now, where we told clients something, they did not listen to us from the start. And then after it, they will come and be telling you that same thing that you told them as, oh, I think we should just do this thing. And you're like, you don't say, oh, I told you now. Don't do that. It just makes you sound it just makes you sound cocky. So you don't say, I told you now. No. What you do is you just let them understand that, oh, great, I have actually worked on this particular solution before, right? Here's it. Let me pull it out from the archive. If you remember, we had this discussion where this, but here's that you've already done it because it's something you've done before. Do you understand? Someone says he's not hearing me. Can everyone hear me clearly? Just to be sure.
Yes, we can hear you.
We
All
can.
right. All right. So I'm going to stop talking once it's 11:15 to open up to numerous questions. I want us to be able to, like, if you have anything that you want to address, right, or if it's a particular scenario you're facing now and you need to think of how to approach it, please do ask. All right. So let me just try and summarize and give you like key points, right? The best way to gather ideas from stakeholders is to, one, have conversations with them where you get the what, the why, the how, the when, right? And then collate this information effectively that you are able to circle back to it if a time comes where there is miscommunication or there is no proper alignment. Because most times when there's a mistake or when there's an issue with a flow, a founder will not say it like, oh, I was the one that told you to do this. They will be like, Sam, please, can we make this change or make this change? And sometimes these comments feel like you are the one that did rubbish, or knowing that it's what they asked you to do, right? So it's just important because it serves as a check and balance on founders. So they know that all this miscommunication, it has actually been coming from us. And I think at some point we need to start listening to this person's recommendation so that we can move on. Do you understand? And it's also just a safety for you as a designer because you cannot remember everything you said. So if you have somewhere where during meetings you are typing out all the key things that they are saying, oh, we had this meeting on June 18th, 2022. On this meeting, we said that we are changing the color of the footer. On this meeting, we said that we are removing this thing. On this meeting, we said that we are going to bring a brand designer to come and do the logo. So I should put a placeholder old logo. On this meeting, and then somebody comes to you and says, why are we not using the old logo, even though the new designer is not done with the new logo? And you then say, oh, we can definitely update to the new the old logo while the graphic designer is working on the new logo. But initially, we just said to have a placeholder there, right? But I'm happy to update that. It's all those many talk. You just cut it once because the head will be correct that that's true. It came from somewhere. It's not like you just randomly do things because when stakeholders are reviewing things later on, they don't see it as yes what we discussed. They see it as, oh, yeah, come and show us what you have been doing since because you have been collecting our money and we have been paying you salary. So what have you been doing since? And then you show the work and they're like, and it starts, and it's important that you always communicate, right? See, if there's one thing that you take out of this conversation, don't make assumptions. So that when you're having calls, you're not saying, I think, I thought. Those things do not make you sound professional. When you're saying, I thought that this would make sense, like, I just thought that we should just have it there. And then your founder saying, no, just have it there as now. Please, let's remove it. You don't need to have it there. Do you understand? For example, you are creating an onboarding screen, right? In that onboarding screen, you have next, previous. You have these carousel circles, right? That shows that a user can swipe. You have skip. And then your founder comes and says, why do you have next, previous? You have the carousel, this thing, and you also have skip. It could be that based off of accessibility considerations and the user demography. For older generations, they might not be able to represent that chat bubble as they should swipe, right? They are more used to clicking buttons to make actions. So we thought about having a previous and next button to serve to those people so that they can also click and not miss out on the other information we have, right? But at the same time, we also have the swipe so that people can basically take advantage of their mobile gestures. When you say something like that, they now understand why you have the two of them there. If they now say, I think that we should just take it out, you then now notice somewhere that, oh, this changed based off of this recommendation, but if stakeholder said you should still take it out, then you take it out. If there now comes a time in the future and they say people are not swiping through our onboarding, they are complaining, they are just skipping. Why is that happening? And you then now do research and find out that the older generation, they are just skipping it because they don't know what screen they are on, right? You can then now bring back your previous and next button and say, here's a recommendation that I had in the initial design phase, right? To basically solve for that. And it also makes, you need to, one thing as a designer is you need to gain trust. And it will not happen in 1 week of the project. Your first 2 weeks of that project, they are going to think that they have to hold your hand. They are going to think that if they are not watching on you closely, you will miss out on things. But if you allow them to trust that you are even the one that is on top of things more than them, they will give you proper freedom and not overwhelm you, right? Yes, it pays to document too, especially when you want to collect your money and one person is saying, but you did not do what we discussed. It pays to document too. I know that in Nigeria we cannot take some clients to court before they go and hire the whole law firm. But I mean, it's just important that at most you properly document, right? So on that note, right, I hope I've not overwhelmed you guys with so much information, and like you guys have been able to like get a lot of information out of this conversation in terms of gathering ideas from stakeholders, right? There are also like fun things that you can do with stakeholders, right? If you know that they have the time, it's not every stakeholder that has the time, but you can do things like whiteboards, right? Where you basically have stakeholders entering their ideas. You can just find it out as maybe what do you see this project as? They're just entering things, or maybe you have something like, what apps do you like? So they are writing list of apps. Based off of these apps, what are the most important features that you think that they have? Okay, these apps, how do they connect to the features that you're building? Does anyone speak to any feature? So it's just basically, by the way you look at this project, you can actually have fun exercises with these founders where you're actually helping them think deeply. Do you understand? And but not every founder is tech savvy that will want to jump into Fit Jam or Miro and do all those things with you. Some of them will just want to simply communicate. You are the one that will go and break down that information to them and then now present it in a way that they can take in that information. So you also just need to know what kind of founder you have, right? Not all of them have that time. Do you get? So that being said, I'm going to open the floor for like questions. If you want to ask me anything personal, please go ahead. Let me just open the chat just in case people are asking questions in the chat. So does anyone have a question, or
Good
maybe
morning.
you'd like to add something? Okay, go ahead.
Good morning.
Good
Can you hear
morning.
me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Please, I want to I'm curious about something. It's kind of a little bit personal.
All right, go ahead.
And you said you're working like maybe if I'm correct, like 4 companies right now, maybe 2 Nigerian
Yeah.
companies and 2 foreign countries.
No,
And
just one Nigerian company.
one Nigerian company and okay, that's like 2 or 3 companies together like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how are you able to multitask with like what if the everything is just jam packed? Like hope is not too overwhelming. Like there'll be a time that it will just be like it should be too overwhelming and just be like, oh boy, like
Yeah.
like how are you coping with like frustrations and like because I've
Yeah.
been through like even not up to this, like when things are too much, I'll just get
Yeah.
frustrated like see like oh boy Moshimo, like I'm not doing again, like stuff like that. So
So let me answer that. Right. Let me first start by saying I'm human. I get frustrated. I get to points where I'm like, Shemo, right? Yeah, and be able to afford to get out of Nigeria and we come back, right? But here's what I do, and it all boils back to this conversation that we're having today. I effectively document. So I don't work randomly, right? Like I don't work on things at the same time from different companies. You can achieve all the things you need to do in a week in maybe 5 hours if you have it clearly defined. Do you know? Like if you know what you are trying to tackle for, you can achieve things faster than if you're all over the place. So one thing I do is, first of all, they are not all in the same time zones. So I'm done with like Nigerian stuffs by 6 p.m. That's like if anybody needs me to join calls, meetings and stuff, everything ends by 6 p.m. Right? And then like the other projects are in the US, right? So they probably wake up around, they're probably just responding to me around 4:30, 5 p.m. They're just actually starting their day. I will probably not want to talk to like afternoon, which is like 9 p.m. So first of all, is that your time is going to be messed up. Actually, you're going to be like up late hours. But even as at that, I'm actually not up late hours on meetings, or not in meetings at 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. Highest is that my meetings end by 12, which is, even if I'm not in meetings, I will still be awake. Do you understand? They end by 12 a.m. or maybe sometimes 1 a.m. dependently. But what I do is I then have a personal to-do list. So if I have tasks that I need to, and that's why it's also good to clearly define. Nobody is just going to assume and they told you something on Monday, they are meant to sit on Tuesday. Anybody that tells me they need anything done, I tell them when I would get it done. Right? So if if we have our design sprint, and I have like tickets, right? I'll basically pull the tickets that I have in progress. That, okay, this is what I want to work on today. Put it in progress, right? Now, when I put it in progress, I have my own separate to-do list where I then now put this as, okay, what do I want to do today from XYZ company 1 to 3? What do I need to do today from XYZ company 1 to 3? What do I need to do today from XYZ company 1 to 3? Right? Now, when I have that, it now looks like I'm working like on one company, but different stuff. If you understand, it's like the same way you work in an agency as one designer, but you're working on multiple companies, or you work in a company, right, as one designer, and you're still working on 5 different products in that same company. Do you understand? And it's still the same 1 month, or still the same hours of the day. But the most important thing is how organized you are and knowing your
So I
threshold.
did not notice it on time. I just had to do small stuff yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't get that. Was someone saying something, or was just
I think the person is on call.
okay, cool. All right, so like also understand where you're at. Let me tell you one honest truth. Be honest to yourself as a designer. If you're not ready to take on 2 jobs, I couldn't do this 3 years ago. Like, I would have broken down, right? But there are certain levels that I've gotten to. Right, there are things that I'm not even trying to figure out. I'm not. If I'm learning anything now in product design, it's probably new things that come out. Like, maybe I'm just trying to like learn a new design style that has just been trending. But I'm not making mistakes with Figma. I'm not looking for, how do I do this thing with Figma. So there are a lot of things I think less about. And as you grow as a product designer, you then start to not worry about the things that are not important. Like, instead of you to be working on important screen, you say because you did not see illustration style and you have been looking for illustration style and be wasting time. And I've told myself, and also is that I've told myself the honest truth of where my strengths lying. So the things I work on and where my strengths lying, also they are kind of like around the same ecosystem, right? Maybe like Web3 projects or websites. Like, I love doing like proper websites. Like, no one, probably once the website I'm working on goes live end of this month for like the Disney guys, I'll share it with you guys and then we can maybe talk over it. I like doing proper graphic websites where all those awards. That's why I used to sleep and lap and ninja. I love websites that are like really, really done well. So I play to my strengths. So things that easily I can do. Do you understand? So I'm not working on. I don't take projects in medical industry. All these very, very stressful things, right? So you also need to know what industry your strengths lie in, where you can effectively pick up things, right? I do not advise you to take on 3 jobs if you cannot manage it. Do you understand? And I'm also trying to get to a point where I can focus on one job. Do you understand? And that's because I also want to build my own product. So it also just depends on what stage you are in your life, how much in Nigeria here, you can't basically, and even if you want to earn mad ass money, there are some places you have to work, and all of us cannot work there. So sometimes you need to maybe take on more projects. But like for foreign roles, right? Why I have more foreign roles is because I work more in like the US time zone, right? As opposed to Nigerian time. So it doesn't really clash with anything I'm doing with like Nigerian companies, right? Also being effectively able to take those tasks, my daily tasks from each, line them up as one, and then just see. Don't try and work on it. Don't try and think of everything and work on everything at the same time. If you have, pick number one, finish it. Pick number 2, finish it. Pick number 3, finish it. Pick number 4, before you know it, you're done. Now, if you know like some tasks are like high priority or like they are more taxing, that you need to spend more time on, right? You can maybe even start to think about, okay, what do I want? And it's just why it's important to sketch. So the other ones that are simple that you just know, oh, it's just this thing. Maybe you just need to sketch out a layout, just sketch it out, what you need to have there, have it there, so that you have it somewhere, and you then just know when you're ready to work on it. You're just doing. You see all those short videos on Instagram when someone just show you a sketch and they just work on it and quickly create that screen. It's actually how it works. But if you can't do that, right? If the one thing you need to know as a product designer to be able to manage these things is time management. And it's the same thing the way CEOs own multiple companies now. And you ask, how are they running multiple companies? They just know how to effectively manage their time and make things as priority. Do you understand? So that's that. I hope that answered your question. Let me answer another question here. My own question is not related to this topic. Can you please share your LinkedIn username to connect to you in case of future mentoring? Yes, I can, but you can just basically search for Samuel Weibo. You see me on LinkedIn and you can send me a request. If you want to send me a request, because I get too many people sending me requests and sometimes I don't respond. So just put, oh, hi Samuel, XYZ from Design Pal. Anybody that sends me a request from Design Pal, I'll respond to them. But I don't like to respond to a lot of requests on LinkedIn. I don't know. I just feel overwhelmed. I'm a very, very, very coded person. I'm very sure nobody has heard about me until today's call, right? So I don't like being out there. All right. So thank you. While speaking, you mentioned creating a roadmap that will guide your work with the client. What should that roadmap include? With what hierarchy should that item be applying? Okay, so ideally, a product manager should be the one to create the roadmap, right? You're not meant to create the roadmap. You're only just meant to inform this roadmap, like help them scope out that this thing that you're putting cannot take 1 week, it should take 2 weeks. Do you understand? But if you need to work on a roadmap on your own, if it's a project where you're handling end to end, right? What you need to do is just basically you can use Notion, right? You can use like Jira. You can even use Excel. Doesn't need to be that complicated. All you just basically need to do is take all the things that you're going to work on in terms of deliverables, right? And assign them to the duration at which you would work on them. Do you understand? That's just simply, so if you say, oh, you're working on sign up flow and homepage, right? This will take me 1 week. So you outline it on the roadmap. Immediately I'm done with this, I move to this, right? So it just helps you like, and then you also have to ask the client what exactly is high priority for you, what are the things you need to sign off on. And also, before you even start building things end to end, it's important that before you even agree to timeline,
I have 4 questions, 2 personal questions and 2 business questions. So,
Okay.
number 1, what should a product designer, like after maybe having a bit of experience in product design, so that you can be able to work more efficiently with the technical team, which part of engineering do you think a product designer should maybe learn or have a better grasp of? Is it front end or back
Okay,
end?
hold on. Let me answer that question. Right? None. You don't
Okay.
need to know how to code. See, what you need to understand, right, is guidelines. So read up material design guidelines. Read up on this thing. What's the name of these guys? Human-centered design guidelines. That's Apple's design guidelines. If you have standard on design guidelines, because these are the things that these engineers also follow, and this is from a design perspective. Now, I'm talking about like information architecture and backend perspective. I'm talking about like how to effectively work with developers. You don't necessarily need to know how to write code to effectively deliver to developers or get them what they need. You need to understand things like grid systems. You need to understand things like components. You need to understand things like being able to effectively. That's what brought about design systems. Design systems are meant to be that holistic, long living documents, right? Where designers and developers sync. So design system is not solely on the designer to define. Do you understand? It's not solely on the designer to define. It is based on design and development. So when you do an input field, do you understand? It has to be based off of what exactly are you guys using? What is your own standard size for this input field? They'll tell you, okay, Sam, this thing, okay, but based off of my own recommendation, don't you think we should then make sure you guys align and have one defined input field? It's not that you do input field when it's in engineering is 20 pixels longer than what you have in design. Do you understand? And that's how they create systems, because for every developer, they will have to create a library of assets that they would constantly use. And this will be informed by what you provide to them. So you also need to get their um, feedback on some things, right? And align. Do you understand? But you don't necessarily need to know how to write code. Don't let anybody make you feel like if you don't know how to write code, it is good to know front end, because it just makes it easier for a designer to achieve what he wants. And if a developer um, makes a mistake, I can easily fix it up, right? But you don't need to. It's not in our job description to actually do this thing. Have understanding of HTML, CSS, so that you can call their bullshit, right? Understand when they say, oh, flexbox, when they say all this, they are things that they will want to use you to confuse you, and they will tell you padding. With auto layouts now, you can set effective paddings now. So you tell them that yes, the same thing you are talking about is what we have in the design, and we effectively use auto layout to set that up just to make sure that we are on the same page. Do you understand? So it's not like you need to know how to write code, but have the important information, important guidelines, standards. Do you understand? And be able to implement it. So yeah, your next question. Let's reduce your questions to like two, so that I can answer a few more questions before I drop off. This I'm already staying longer than what I wanted to stay. Yes, you can follow
Okay.
design systems from material design. Yes. So what I do is let me just quickly answer this person's question. Yola, is sometimes when I'm working on projects and they tell me that specific, they want somebody with specific iOS understanding. I benchmark so much on human-centered design guidelines, which is Apple's design guidelines. I look at their typography system, look at everything, and make sure that what I'm using fits that guideline. Do you understand? So if you're in cases where it is specific, there are specific guidelines. Like material is for Android, and although you can still use it for iOS, you understand. But if they're now like specific, right, you can also just streamline to those ones too, right? So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so at what point can a designer become a senior product designer? And in your own career trajectory, how 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 far have you come and how long did it like take you to get there?
Okay, officially, right? Officially, it took me maybe like I think like 5 years to actually own the senior product designer name, right? But I've been calling myself a senior product designer for like 3 or 2 years because I beg cannot. There's no junior roles. Most people will just assume they need a senior person. They don't really put out for junior roles. So obviously, right, we just have to convince our way in. But let me tell you what I used to judge. It might be different from for you, right? But what takes you or what makes you different from a UI designer, a basic junior UI designer, and a senior and becoming a senior product designer is ownership, being proactive, right? Things like what we talked about today, where you are not just sitting somewhere and somebody is telling you do this, do that. You are not sitting somewhere and somebody is telling you, no, this tab is not meant to be like this. Oh, this thing is not aligned. Do you understand? So when you meet the fundamental design requirements, your typography, check. Your design system values, check. Do you understand? You understand how to implement colors well. You are no longer stressed about the little things about design, but you're now on more high level things where you are informing stakeholder decisions, right? You are influencing definitions. You're not just walking by, oh, and we are doing this, we are doing that. Do you understand? So it's important that you take ownership. Once you can take ownership, where you don't necessarily need to be micromanaged, you can start a project from end to end with just you being the only designer and do it effectively and cross all touch points. That's when you actually, so if you can't tell yourself the truth, like if they give me a full app project and I own it, because it's there are important things. Oh, there's research, there's this, there's stakeholders management, there's developers handoff, Jonathan, there's testing. So can I effectively manage an app end to end until its success point, which may be launch, which may be user acquisition, but whatever it is, if you can go from step to step in that journey where you can effectively define a design style on your own. Do you understand? Like you can effectively create an app on your own and it meets all the necessary touch points. In terms of visual is good, in terms of user experience is good, in terms of managing expectations you are good. Do you understand? In terms of defining things, making things clear. Do you understand? So these are the things that that actually makes you a senior product designer. When you interview for roles of senior product designers, if you notice, they don't talk too much about your design because your design is what will first get you the interview. You know, we think your designs look great and we want to discuss the next level. But you see that when you have that discussion with them is when you now get that rejection mail, because they've been able to see that when having a conversation with you, they can see that yes, you can design, or can this person really own this project for us? Do you understand? So I hope I've been able to answer that. Let me quickly answer Boluwat's first question. Please, what is the essence of creating multiple reference design tokens after having the actual design token? What do you mean by design token? And what do you mean by multiple reference design tokens? I don't really. Please, does checking inspiration from online as a designer make you incompetent? Please, it doesn't make you incompetent to check for inspiration as much as possible. Like I told you, I live on awards. I live on Lapa Ninja. Like I'm always checking inspiration. Like see, as a designer, if you can reinvent the wheel very, very well, you'll be able to create unique things because you already know what the base standard is and you can do the base standard. So when you are even now making changes or you are making a unique thing, you are not making it from you just randomly did it because you have wealth of inspiration that you've taken in. It's even advisable as a designer every day to just look at something new, try and recreate it, but you can't do it every day. Oh. I don't do it every day. It might even be once in a month if I actually try and do something I've not done before. But it's just important that you are exploring how far you can go, how much you can push yourself as a designer. What are the unique things you think you can do? Some will just be experimental. You obviously know it's not functional yet, justified. But it might be one little thing that you did that experimental that you can bring into something that is functional and make your design stand out. Do you understand? So please don't ever feel incompetent by checking for inspiration, please. Even if you replicate an app end to end, do you understand? There's nothing wrong. You are not stealing anything. Do you understand? It's them too. They looked at somewhere before they did it. So yes. So one more question from you. More five.
Okay.
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 Yeah, thank you so much. So just a rejoinder.
Please go ahead. I'm listening to you.
Okay, so just a rejoinder on the my question that you answered earlier. If I get a trade, like there's this certification, like I think it's called product owner and
Yeah. Go ahead.
Scrum and like Scrum Master. Does that also like help to grow on the on that career trajectory to become a senior product designer? And lastly, what is your opinion on Japa? Like you have a remote job, right?
Yeah.
So like what's stopping you from just like going to where you can work comfortably at the same time zone?
Okay. Awesome. So the first one you asked, right? Um, So I don't pressure designers into learning product ownership, product management, and stuff like that. I don't pressure designers into that. But if you take that step as an individual person, it helps because if you're going to work as a let's example, you get into a place like Top Town, you manage your clients end to end, like life. Not seeing like nobody on top that will help you and be talking to anybody like you. And if you have product ownership, it allows you to actually effectively be able to manage these guys, because white people don't wait around. Like they move really fast. Like if you're not like on the same pace with them and you can't think as fast as they do, I can't think on the level they are thinking, right? It will just you just let them say that, oh, they don't think you're a great fit. Do you understand? So it's good if you can do it, great. But that doesn't mean that somebody who doesn't do it, right? There are soft skills that you either pick up while working, right? Or you can actually go and look for them now. Do you understand? I didn't learn product ownership from like a course. I picked it up while working. Do you understand? But if you want to do it, it's just you taking a step further, right? And it everything actually helps. Um, Second question about Jackpot. My brother, I'm in the process. Right? Don't worry, I'm in the process. It's not an issue. Initially I didn't really give it so much thought because I felt that I created like a safe bubble for myself and I'm living fine. I'm okay. I'm not experiencing so much difficulties here in Nigeria. But I think the whole NSAS thing as this was a wake up call for everyone, right? And then currently seeing how these elections are going, right? For me, I've just given up. So I mean, at this point, I'm in the process. If that answers your question, Esther, let me scroll up and see your question. I don't know if maybe when I left the call. Okay, I would like to let me just check. I want to ask how your current engagement with multiple companies is classified. Okay, yes. Some are full time roles, some are freelance. So on TopTal, you have full time roles, but you're still a freelancer. Do you understand? It just means that you just need to put in 40 hours a week on that project, right? Um, the other two are full time, but they do not clash. The honest truth is, I take more full time roles than freelance roles, right? I just find a way around them. And oh yes, they are not competitors. So they're not doing the same thing. I do not take companies that are doing the exact same thing together just for safety. I mean, like it's fine if you do it if they're not in the same country, but I do not take companies that are in the same. Just I don't want to allow. You understand? That's why I can effectively put everything on my LinkedIn, and nobody will be messaging me from HR. That's why you um doing that. Okay, Boloat's first question will be the last question because I have to go now. I actually stayed more than because I'm actually enjoying this too. But anyways, like when sending your design system to developers, I watched a YouTube video and the designer mostly created various references, design tokens for the styles and components coupled with the design system token. That one that is going to be used in design. So I was confused. So I don't know if that explains it. Okay. I understand what you're saying, right? So basically, when sharing design systems, right? She tried to like show the use how to implement the usage of the design systems, right? Of like the stuff in the design system. Is that what you're asking? What's first on the call? Just respond in the chat. Let me know if that's what you're talking about. Like, so she had design system where she had created buttons, components, all those things, right? And then she now had another screen that was showing like, oh, this screen, and then she was outlining how the design system should be used, like spacing, button placement, use cases for the different components. Is that what you are asking? Yeah. So ideally, to me, it's a shame because I've already done design and the same components you are seeing in the screen that you are working with was in the design system. But for handoff to projects where you do not have communication with the developer, maybe you don't necessarily meetings with developers, or it before you even get to meet or discuss things with developers, right? It takes more time. It's just easier to. I think Femke has that flow to where she actually shows the usage. It's just like saying you're creating an overall process of how it is implemented so that anybody that comes in, whether the person is new or old, you don't necessarily need to have meetings with them to be explaining what components are for and where they are used. Do you understand? And also understand that most times in the US, they have dedicated people working on design systems. It's here in Nigeria that we'll be saying, as a designer, finish design system. Most times, I won't lie to you, what we do is style guide. Do a style guide and start your project. You cannot define some things until you even made some screens and they've been approved. Imagine doing design system, you start with input field, and later on in the design, you change your input field to a certain new style. You basically have to update that style guide because of some design changes that you've made. Do you understand? So understand that design system is a living, breathing document that as the product grows, as new things come, as changes come, do you understand? It's the same way that your design system grows and improves. Do you understand? So for now, like people that have done that are people that they now have like multiple products, multiple components, different usages, this where they come in. So they then now need to start outlining like how it works, where it's connected to. Uber does it, right? I think that's what Femke showed in the Uber video. So she has that. Do you get? There's another babe that has it that way too. I think, but it's more or less like when you're working in more larger base. So even when a designer comes in, he knows how to implement stuff from the design system. He knows when specific buttons should be used. He doesn't necessarily need to look at all the screens to be able to know how to implement a button. He knows how to implement modals, how they should be placed, where they should be placed, what use cases they come in, different error states, when these error states should come up, right? So it's just, and most of those documents are also informed by engineering. So it's not just about like designer just went and doing stuff. So like it might be like there are like 4 people that are on that thing giving those feedback, right? So that being said, this has brought us to like the end of today's session. I'm so sorry guys, I won't be able to take any more questions, but feel free to just drop it in like the Slack channel and ask me on Slack, and I will definitely respond. Thank you so much, guys. It was great having this session. Looking forward to our next session. And do have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.